Hello world of YouTube. Beef in hip-hop is pretty common. It's a pretty commonplace. At some point in a rapper's career, they're going to get into a squabble with another rapper, and they're either going to write a verse about it, or they're going to write a whole damn song about it. And today, I'm going to be going over some of my favorite diss tracks that have come up in those quarrels between rappers. Now, I know that there's this kind of place in the community that hates diss tracks and thinks that they're very narrow-minded and expose the fragility of a rapper. And I would agree to a lot of them. There's a lot of diss tracks that come off very frail sounding and almost kind of like whining. But there are some that bring out some genuine talent in some artists that hadn't really been showcased before. The real only beef I'm not going to talk about in any capacity is the Pac and Biggie one, only because that led to actual murder. Like, I don't know, I think the songs that came of it, like the Biggie and Pac songs that came out in response to their beef, are actually really good, and I think that it sucks that it led to that, because in the documented history of rap beefs, theirs is really the only one that's been that high profile and has led to that kind of outcome. You know, after a while, after their death, beef and diss tracks kind of subsided for a while, but in the 2000s, they did come back in small pockets, and there's some representation of that on my small list that I'm bringing to you today. And there's even a lot of modern representation, because over the past like 5 or 6 years, diss tracks and beef and hip-hop have actually become very popular again. I feel like every year there's at least 3 or 4 high-profile beefs going on to some capacity, and there's some tracks that drop from those that really get the public consciousness kind of excited again for what a rapper's going to do. Diss tracks nowadays have kind of been a way for rappers to showcase their true talents. You know, and I'm going to talk about that in a couple instances on this list. But, you know, really all I'm wanting to talk about are the diss tracks where, at the worst, they ended a rapper's career. They didn't end in their actual homicide, you know. And that's what I'm going to talk about here today. I thought about pulling together 11, and as I was pulling together 11, really the back half of the list was just entries that I enjoyed, but not as much as, like, my top 6. So here they are. Here's my top 6 favorite diss tracks ever. If you would like some honorable mentions, like No Vaseline, Killshot, because that's a really good modern representation of an older rapper getting to showcase that he's not quite dead yet. There's about 6 linked in, or listed in the description. But with that out of the way, let's dive in.
This nigga you know versus this scum of a land that transcend 2 surfaces. The rich or the poor.
If you didn't already know, I'm a pretty big Kendrick Lamar fan. I think he's one of the best rappers to pop this decade, and back when he made his Control verse, he seemed to make it apparent that he's really just having everybody in his sights for a good time. You know, he's not trying to cause anything traumatic to happen. He just wants to up the quality of hip-hop, and I respect that wholeheartedly. And the only reason why the Heart Part 4 isn't higher is because he's not as blunt as he was on the Control verse. This dropped after the Control thing, and it sees Kendrick kind of treading back on more common tropes seen in diss tracks, where it's kind of snide remarks, half jabs at people without any name calling, or like name dropping, which I think was a big component of Control and what made it such a powerful verse. And when he dropped this track, and it seemingly was a diss track, people were hoping that he would have that same kind of bluntness in forthcoming with who he's dissing, but he hasn't done that. He's yet to disclose who he disses on the song, and he probably never will, and that's fine, that's his prerogative. But while this song is dope, and Kendrick weaves some really dope lines, I just kind of have always listened to this with bittersweet feelings, because I would hope that he would continue the path he laid forth the year prior with Control. But this is still a really good song, and it has
a Pop-Tart, sweetheart, you're soft in the middle. I eat you for breakfast, a watch was a stain for your necklace.
One of the older entries on this list, Back Down, shows 50 making a fool of Ja Rule. You know, there's kind of a joke that Ja Rule doesn't really have much of a career because of 50 Cent, and it's because of tracks like this. You know, he kind of showcased his talents in a way that he doesn't do much, especially nowadays. And back on his earlier records, he was really adamant about putting Ja Rule down. And I think he succeeded. I mean, I think not just financially, but notoriety-wise, 50 Cent is much more notable as far as his prominence in the genre, even in this decade, than Ja Rule is. You know, I feel like 50 Cent has a far better reach than Ja Rule does nowadays, and it's because of tracks like Back Down. I mean, he's got this real visceral bite to his sound, and he's got a real thunderous boom to his voice. He's just flexing his chest up, and honestly, this is the most of that style, but I think it's effective. I think the instrumental is also very effective, but I think 50 shines here, and I'm not the biggest 50 Cent fan, but I mean, I do like him more than Ja Rule because of tracks like this and because of his ability to pen some really punchy lines that are effective, you know? And yeah, I think out of their beef especially, you know, I think 50 Cent kind of came out on top.
Just for y'all to think that I don't write enough. Niggas mad cause I got the Midas touch.
And in this decade, we kind of had something similar with Drake and Meek Mill. I mean, I'm going to be real, I'm not the biggest Meek Mill fan, and while Drake is incredibly problematic, I think he's a better rapper than Meek Mill, and I think on Back to Back, he really showcases his prowess as a rapper, you know, and I think that he also kind of squelched a lot of the ideas that he's just a soft guy. You know, he can pack some punches if he wants to, and I fucking love Back to Back. The shit gets me hype. I mean, Drake's energy on the track is undeniable. The dude just has charisma on the song, and he's owning it, just like he is demolishing Meek Mill's and anybody else's claims at him. You know, I think that it showcased that Drake may not be the first guy you want to aim your sights at. While I think he's been put back in his place,
You are hiding a
he at least showcased he had some skills on Back to Back. And I think out of the Meek Mill Drake beef, Drake definitely came out on top, not just in the public eye, but to me, in the songs and any verses that they dropped about each other. This is the crowning moment, and Drake definitely won that argument.
You telling me I can be king of hip-hop and they wouldn't give it to Andre 3000? Nigga, please, this war ain't got shit to do with us.
So this is not necessarily an aim at Kendrick Lamar, but Big Crit made one of his best songs of his career in response to the Control verse where Kendrick name-dropped Crit and said that he needed to really up his game up. I don't necessarily agree that he needs to up his game up that much, because to me, Big Crit's one of the best rappers to come out of this decade. I'm a big Crit stan. I love the guy's catalog, even if it is incredibly inconsistent. He's been a very necessary piece of hip-hop this decade, and he's penned some of the best records to come out of the South, to me. But on Mount Olympus, he put everybody in their place that was coming to Crit that didn't necessarily come to him for that before. He was like, this is his letter to the masses post-Control, and it is beautiful. I love the evolution of the verses. The third verse alone.
Overdose on hocus pocus, jibber jabber, snapper. My statue was fire breathing dragon, king of every castle. How they signing rappers? Both these labels must be giving out a rap for breaking little like cattle, keeping niggas shackled, leaving people baffled. Tap dance, nigga, misleading all of your rap fans, nigga. Body what you do a lap dance, nigga.
Still gives me chills. Crit is firing on every single solitary cylinder that he can. The beat that he also produced is immaculate. It's so lush. He could have just spat over the Control beat like a lot of other people did, but he even addresses that in this song. This song is so dense in its words, in its meaning, in its impact, and I adore this song. I think out of the whole Control debacle, Kendrick included, I think the one rapper to come out on top and actually come out better on the other side was Big Crit.
deadbeat motherfucker playing border patrol. Ooh, Adonis is your son, and he does.
So yeah, Drake was put in his place by Pusha T last year. I talked a little bit about the song on my Songs of the Year list because while I like Infrared more as a song, I think as a diss track, The Story of Adidon is more effective because Pusha T came with some receipts and god damn did he just lay Drake out like a fucking 1-2 punch onto the concrete. You know, like I said, there's a very competitive in nature to diss tracks, and there's some people that really don't like that side of it because it can lead to some bad things. But this is the gold that I'm looking for in a diss track. You know, he's coming out and he's exposing a high-profile artist on some real shit, and it's insane. It's so insane. A lot of Pusha T's wordplay in this is great. Like I said in my Songs of the Year video, there's some sections that I'm not the biggest fan of, but if I were to pull a modern representation of what my number one's gonna be that is as effective as that number one track, it's the story of Adidon. You know, Drake, following this, made his weakest record to date, and his response to this, or to Infrared, was not nearly as good as this. I like Duppy Freestyle, don't get me wrong, but this is just next level shit.
Now, I think Drake's life going forth is going to be a lot like the other artist involved in the number one that isn't the one making the song that's in the number one. I think he'll still have a lot of success, and I still think that, bar none, he'll probably be more successful than Pusha T as far as monetary concern. But I just think that when it comes back on reflecting on this particular beef and this particular aspect of this rapper's, of Drake's career, it's going to be looked upon in the same regard as the number one artist that was being attacked will be as well.
Lost already. These niggas deal with emotions. But sad as I love you.
This, like Eminem's Stan, has introduced a new word into the hip-hop lexicon. I mean, how could it not be either? Plus, I'm also a massive Nas fan and a pretty moderate Jay-Z fan, and I think that their beef is incredibly interesting because it spans so long and has evolved so much over the years. You know, they've hated each other, they've made up, they've been at bigger odds than before, they've made up again. They have such a complex story to me, their relationship, and it came to an apex with the whole Takeover Ether thing. While I like Takeover, I think it's a great song. It's no fucking Ether. I mean, Nas just bodies Jay-Z. And again, it's not perfect. There's some lines that seem a little
Karate class, you Tabo ho.
but a lot of this hits very fucking hard. And Nas just guns for Jay-Z and showcases why he's a much better rapper than Jay-Z. I mean, the wordplay, the flow, the fact that he just slams on this instrumental, it is something to behold. I mean, Nas, this track embodies a lot of great things in diss rap culture, and Nas is Ether. I mean, there's a reason why Remy Ma made Sheether, why the story of Adidon is compared to this. You know, this is very similar to the Pusha T Drake scenario, and the fact that Nas, who is a very notable name in the community, is no Jay-Z as far as success is considered. Yet when it came to coming bar to bar, toe to toe, Nas is going to put you on your ass a lot better than Jay-Z would. Jay-Z's no dude to fuck around with, that's for sure. He can hold his own against a lot of people, but you cannot hold your own against a true wordsmith, and Nas showed that on Ether in spades. And I mean, it had to be, you know, it had to be. It's one of the best diss tracks ever made, and in my opinion, it is the best diss track that's ever come to be. I wouldn't say it's the best diss beat, like the best rap beef, but as far as diss tracks are considered and who came out on top, Nas came out on top of the Jay-Z Nas debacle, and Nas certainly made the best diss track ever with Ether. That's my list. That's my list of my top 6 favorite diss tracks. Again, if you want to see some of the others that I think are notable, some of the other beefs that I think are notable, and who I think came out on top, those are listed down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the support. I've had a handful of people come in over the last week or so, thanks to John and Crash. Thank you again, John and Crash, and Grant Kirkhope, actually, for the shout-outs you've been giving me lately. Hopefully you guys stick around and enjoy what I've got. Thank you for watching. Thank you for support here and on Patreon. I'm going to get out of here. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have a good day, lots of situations, and I'll see you another day.
Peace.